My name is Vrek'tal, and I am going to tell you about the single greatest tactical disaster in the history of the Zotharian Empire. You know what? No. Let me rephrase that. I am going to tell you about the day my entire species collectively wet ourselves in front of the galaxy's most terrifying predators, and then had to pretend like we totally meant for that to happen. Spoiler alert, we did not mean for that to happen. It started 3 cycles ago when High Commander Qrill'vex, may his name be forgotten in the annals of military history, decided that Earth would be our next conquest.
Easy pickings, he said.
Primitive technology, he said. They still use combustion engines, he said. What he did not say, and what our intelligence division apparently failed to mention, was that humans are absolutely, completely, horrifyingly insane. But I am getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning, back when I still had my dignity intact and my secondary stomach wasn't tied in knots. The invasion fleet assembled in orbit around their moon. 63 warships, the pride of the Zotharian Armada, bristling with plasma cannons and void missiles. We had conquered 14 worlds with less firepower. I was stationed on the dreadnought Infinite Victory, which in retrospect might have been a bit of an optimistic name choice. I served as a tactical analyst, which basically meant I stared at screens and told important people things they already knew. It was a good job, decent pay, minimal risk, excellent retirement benefits. Notice I said High Commander Qrill'vex addressed the fleet from the bridge of Infinite Victory. He was a towering specimen of Zotharian excellence. All 4 arms crossed in a display of confidence, his cranial ridges gleaming under the command deck lights. "Warriors of Zotharia," he boomed, his voice carrying through every comm system in the fleet. "Today we bring the light of the Empire to yet another primitive world. These humans have squabbled amongst themselves for millennia, never achieving true unity, never reaching beyond their pathetic solar system. They will crumble before our might, as all others have. Prepare for orbital bombardment in 30 units. Everyone cheered. I cheered. We all believed him. Why wouldn't we? We had satellite footage showing their cities, their weapons, their laughably slow aircraft. We had intercepted their communications, full of conflict and disagreement. We had studied their history, an endless parade of wars and violence directed at each other. They seemed perfect for conquest. Divided, aggressive, but ultimately primitive. The first sign that something was wrong came exactly 4 units before bombardment was scheduled to begin. "Commander," called out Sensor Chief Plaxiat, her voice carrying just the slightest tremor. "I am detecting launches from the planet's surface. Multiple launches. Hundreds of them." Qrill'vex barely glanced at her display. "Missiles. Presumably. Primitive chemical rockets. Our point defense systems will handle them easily. Continue bombardment preparations. Sir, these are not following standard missile trajectories. They are accelerating. Still accelerating. Sir, these things are moving at 0.07 light speed." That got his attention. That got everyone's attention. 0.07 light speed is not primitive. 0.07 light speed is what our own missiles traveled at, and we had been conquering worlds for 3,000 years. "Evasive maneuvers," Qrill'vex ordered, his tone still calm but with an edge of concern creeping in. "Deploy countermeasures." The fleet scattered, each ship firing chaff and decoys, trying to present the missiles with false targets. Standard doctrine.
Should have worked.
It did not work. The first missile struck the cruiser Eternal Dominance. The explosion was so bright that the bridge lights automatically dimmed to protect our eyes. When they came back up, Eternal Dominance was just gone. Not damaged, not crippled. Gone. 1,700 crew members reduced to expanding plasma in less than a heartbeat. How? Qrill'vex stared at the tactical display like it had personally betrayed him. How did they compensate for our countermeasures? Their technology level should not allow for that kind of tracking sophistication. I was asking myself the same question when 3 more ships vanished from the display, then 6 more, then 10. "They are targeting our propulsion systems." Someone screamed across the comm, "They know exactly where to hit us." This was impossible. You do not learn the structural weaknesses of an enemy ship in the 4 units since we arrived. You especially do not learn them when you are a primitive species that has never seen that ship design before. Unless you are very, very good at figuring things out quickly, or very, very experienced at destroying things. The humans had been fighting each other for their entire recorded history. They had gotten extremely good at it. "Return fire." Qrill'vex was no longer calm. "All ships, Fire at will on the planet's surface. Target their launch sites. The fleet opened up with everything we had. Plasma beams lanced down through the atmosphere, turning entire square kilometers into molten glass. Kinetic impactors traveling at relativistic speeds cratered cities. We threw enough firepower at that planet to sterilize 3 worlds. The missiles kept coming. Sir, we are being hailed. Communications Officer Threxin reported. Audio only. Origin point is somewhere on the planet's surface. Put it through. Qrill'vex snarled. The voice that came through the speakers was female, speaking in flawless galactic standard, which should have been our second warning sign. How did they know our language? Zotharian Fleet, this is General Patricia Okonkwo of the United Earth Defense Council. You have initiated hostile action against our world. We strongly suggest you cease immediately and withdraw. There was something in her voice. Not fear, not anger. Something else. Something almost like disappointment. Like we had failed some kind of test we did not even know we were taking. Qrill'vex laughed. Actually laughed. Human, you are in no position to make demands. We have devastated your cities. Your military installations are slag. Surrender now and your species will be granted the mercy of servitude rather than extinction. There was a pause. Then the human general spoke again, and this time her voice was colder than the void between stars. You fired on civilian population centers. That was a mistake. The comm cut off. Track that signal, Qrill'vex ordered. I want coordinates for a full bombardment strike. Sir, I had the signal the entire time, Threxin replied, his face paling from deep purple to a sickly lavender. The transmission came from inside a mountain complex that we already hit with 3 plasma strikes. It should be vapor. Then explain why we just received a transmission from there. I cannot, sir. That was when the missiles stopped. For about 30 seconds, nothing launched from Earth. The fleet, or what was left of it, we had lost 22 ships already, held formation and waited. Damage report. Qrill'vex demanded. The reports came in. They were bad, very bad. Our fleet had been reduced by more than 1/3 in less than 10 units. The ships we had left were damaged, shield generators straining, point defense systems depleted, and we had not even landed a single soldier yet. Sir, new contacts. Multiple launches from the surface. I looked at my tactical screen and felt my blood turn cold. Not missiles this time. These were different. Smaller, faster. There were thousands of them absolutely swarming up from the planet like angry insects. What are those? Qrill'vex demanded. I zoomed in on the sensor data, running it through our identification algorithms. The answer came back, and I genuinely thought there had been a computer error. Sir, they are reading as crewed fighters. Single-pilot attack craft. That is tactically insane. Single-pilot craft are suicide in fleet combat. Our point defense will shred them. He was right. It was insane, except the humans had apparently forgotten to read the tactical manual that said small fighters were obsolete in modern space warfare. Or maybe they had read it and decided they did not care. The fighter swarm hit our formation like a tsunami of violence. They moved in ways our sensors could barely track, pulling maneuvers that should have liquefied their pilots from the G-forces. Our point defense systems, already depleted from the missile barrage, could not keep up. A human fighter, and I am not exaggerating this, performed a barrel roll around a plasma beam, launched 2 missiles that destroyed a frigate, then rammed itself into the shield generator of a cruiser before the pilot ejected. The explosion took out the cruiser's shields, and 3 more fighters immediately swarmed it, cutting through the hull plating with some kind of cutting laser. They were not just attacking, they were coordinating. Every move was precise, calculated, executed with the kind of skill that took decades to develop. How long had these humans been preparing for something like this? They are boarding us, someone screamed. Human fighters are latching onto our hulls and cutting through. This was not an invasion anymore. This was pest control. And we were the pests. Qrill'vex stared at the tactical display, watching our ships die one by one, and I saw something I had never seen before in a Zotharian commander. Fear. Pure. Undiluted. Pull back, he whispered. Sir? His second-in-command asked. Pull back. All ships. Retreat to hyperspace. Jump coordinates. Immediate withdrawal. The fleet, or what remained of it, 41 ships out of the original 63, began turning away from Earth. The human fighters pursued, harrying us, cutting down another 3 ships before we could generate enough distance to jump. Then we were in hyperspace. running away from a species we had thought primitive, and the command deck was absolutely silent except for the hum of the engines and the quiet sobbing of Sensor Chief Plaxet. We had been in combat for exactly 2 hours and 47 units. High Commander Qrill'vex stood at his command station, all 4 hands gripping the edges hard enough to leave dents in the metal. His cranial ridges had gone from gleaming to a dull, stressed gray. "Someone explained to me," he said very slowly, very carefully, "how a pre-hyperdrive species just destroyed a third of our fleet." Nobody spoke. What was there to say? We had just been thoroughly, comprehensively beaten by a species that, according to our intelligence reports, should not have been capable of fighting us at all. I cleared my throat. Everyone looked at me. I immediately regretted clearing my throat. "Spee." "Analyst Vrek'tal," Qrill'vex ordered. "Sir, I have been reviewing our intelligence data on Earth. I believe there may have been some significant oversights in our analysis." "Oversights?" Qrill'vex repeated flatly. "Yes, sir. For example, we noted that humans have never achieved hyperdrive technology. What we failed to note was that they have successfully detonated stellar mass weapons on their own planet, multiple times, for testing purposes. The command deck was so quiet you could have heard a scale drop. They tested planet-destroying weapons on their own planet," Qrill'vex said. "Yes, sir. Hundreds of times. They poisoned their own atmosphere, irradiated entire regions, and kept doing it anyway because they wanted to see what would happen." "What kind of species does that?" "I did not have an answer for that. Nobody did." "Continue your analysis, Vrek'tal." I pulled up more data, my hands shaking slightly as I worked the controls. "We also noted that humans are divided into multiple nation-states, frequently in conflict. What we did not consider was the implications of that fact. Sir, these beings have been fighting each other constantly for their entire recorded history. They have had thousands of years to refine the art of warfare. Every generation has built upon the last, creating better weapons, better tactics, better strategies. They are not divided despite being warlike. They are warlike and therefore divided, and that constant conflict has made them absolutely exceptional at violence." One of the junior officers raised a tentacle. "But analyst, they are so primitive. They barely have fusion power. They have not even colonized their own solar system properly." "No," I agreed. "They have not, because they have spent all their time and resources learning how to kill each other more efficiently. We have been conquering worlds for 3,000 years, but we conquer primitive species, agricultural civilizations, early industrial societies. We have never fought anyone who has spent millennia honing warfare into an art form. Humans have been fighting peer adversaries, learning, adapting, improving, for their entire existence. We just attacked the single most combat-experienced species in this entire sector of the galaxy." Qrill'vex was staring at me with an expression I could not quite read. "Horror? Respect? Maybe both. There is more, sir," I continued, because apparently I hated myself and wanted to make this worse. "I have been analyzing their cultural data. Humans have something they call science fiction. It is a form of entertainment where they imagine future scenarios, including alien invasions. Sir, they have thousands of years' worth of literature, films, and games all about fighting off hostile alien species. They have been mentally preparing for this exact scenario for generations. They have imagined every possible way an invasion could occur and come up with countermeasures. We did not invade an unprepared world. We invaded a species that has been preparing for us since before we even knew they existed." The Infinite Victory limped through hyperspace, and I spent the next several hours reviewing combat footage and trying very hard not to vomit into my tertiary stomach. Do you know what is worse than getting beaten in combat? Having to watch the recordings of exactly how you got beaten frame by frame while your commanding officer breathes down your neck and asks increasingly pointed questions about how this could have happened. "Pause there," Qrill'vex ordered, pointing at the screen with one of his lower arms. "What is that human fighter doing?" I squinted at the frozen image. A small craft, barely larger than an escape pod, was somehow positioned between 2 of our cruisers. "Sir, it appears to be using our own ships as cover while firing at a third target. That is a level of spatial awareness that should not be possible. The pilot would need to track 6 different vectors simultaneously, while compensating for weapons fire and managing their own momentum." "Yes, sir. And they did this instinctively. In the middle of combat." "It would appear so, sir." Qrill'vex made a sound that I can only describe as a defeated wheeze. "Show me the next engagement." I did not want to show him the next engagement. The next engagement was worse. So much worse. The footage showed 3 human fighters approaching the dreadnought Relentless Fury. The dreadnought, naturally, opened up with everything it had: plasma beams, kinetic rounds, missile salvos, enough firepower to obliterate a small moon. The humans dodged it all. Not just dodged. They danced through it, weaving between shots with what looked like casual ease, and I swear on my ancestors' scales, one of them did a complete loop around a plasma beam just to show off before shooting a missile straight down the barrel of the cannon that had just fired at them. The explosion took out the entire forward weapons array.
Oh.
Qrill'vex asked, his voice hollow. How is this possible? Those maneuvers would generate forces that should turn their internal organs into paste. I have been researching that, sir, I replied, pulling up another data file. Humans have something called inertial dampening technology. They developed it for their own comfort during atmospheric flight. We assumed it was primitive, limited. It is not. Their dampeners are actually more sophisticated than ours because they needed them to be. Human bodies are remarkably fragile compared to most spacefaring species, so they compensated by building better protection systems. They turned a weakness into an advantage. That appears to be a recurring theme with this species, sir. Qrill'vex settled into his command chair looking like he had aged 30 cycles in the past few hours. What else did our intelligence division miss? I had prepared a list. It was not a short list. Well, sir, we assumed their lack of unified government was a weakness. It is actually their greatest strength. Each nation-state has its own military, its own research programs, its own tactical doctrines. They share information, but they also compete with each other, driving constant innovation. What we saw today was not one military. It was dozens of different military traditions, all working together, each bringing their own specialized expertise. Go on. We also failed to account for their entertainment industry. Humans spend enormous resources creating elaborate simulations of combat scenarios for recreational purposes. They call them video games. Sir, their children train for warfare from the age of 5 by playing these games. By the time they reach military age, they have logged thousands of hours of tactical training disguised as entertainment. One of the bridge officers, Lieutenant Qrill'vex, raised a claw. Surely that cannot be effective training. It is just playing. I thought the same thing, I admitted. Then I watched footage of a human pilot who is apparently famous in their gaming community. His call sign is Viper. He destroyed 4 of our cruisers personally. When we analyzed his flight patterns, they matched maneuvers from a game called Infinite Conflict that came out 8 years ago. He had been practicing those exact moves for nearly a decade before using them against us. The bridge was silent again. The humans had turned playing into training, entertainment into preparation, and we had completely failed to understand what that meant. There is something else, sir, I continued, pulling up a new file. We intercepted a communication from one of their military commanders during the battle. I think you need to hear this. I played the audio. It was a male voice, calm, almost bored. Razor Squadron, you have 6 bandits on approach vector 337. Splash them and reform on my wing. Hammer Squadron, the big one with the fancy lights, just lost its port shield generator. I want it disabled, not destroyed. We are going to want to study that. Ghost Squadron, nice shooting on that carrier. Round of drinks on me when we get back to base. Qrill'vex listened with his eyes closed. He is treating this like a routine exercise. Yes, sir, I found 73 similar communications. The humans were not panicking. They were not even particularly stressed. Several of them were making jokes. One pilot apparently bought lunch for another because he had bet that we would retreat within 3 hours, and we lasted 2 hours and 47 minutes. They were betting on how quickly they could defeat us. Yes, sir. Qrill'vex opened his eyes and looked at me directly. Analyst Vrek'tal, in your professional opinion, what would have happened if we had actually landed ground troops? I had been dreading that question because I had already run the simulations. It would have been a massacre. Humans have been fighting ground wars for millennia. They know every trick, every tactic, every strategy. They have weapons designed specifically for every possible combat scenario. Urban warfare, jungle warfare, desert warfare, mountain warfare, underwater warfare, underground warfare. They have doctrines for all of it. And sir, here is the terrifying part. They consider ground combat their specialty. What we saw today was their space defense, which they only started seriously developing 50 years ago. Their ground forces are exponentially more capable. How much more capable? I pulled up the final piece of data I had been saving. Sir, I found historical records of a human conflict they called the World War II. It lasted 6 years and involved most of their major nations. In that conflict, humans killed each other at a rate of approximately 25,000 per day, not wounded, killed. For 6 straight years, sir, they did that to each other with what they now consider primitive technology. They have had 80 years to improve since then. The color drained from Qrill'vex's face, his skin going from deep purple to pale lavender. 25,000 casualties per day, for 6 years, fighting themselves. Yes, sir, and that was far from their only major conflict. They have been doing this constantly, learning from each war, each battle, each engagement. We walked into a trap, sir. Not one they set for us specifically, but one they set for anyone who might threaten them. They have spent their entire existence preparing to fight, and we gave them exactly the kind of fight they have been training for. Lieutenant Qrill'vex spoke up again, his voice shaking. But surely we could call for reinforcements. The full might of the Empire. No, Qrill'vex said firmly. Absolutely not. Think about what you are suggesting, Lieutenant. We attacked them with 63 warships and lost a third of our fleet in under 3 hours. They were not even fully mobilized. That was their rapid response force. If we escalate, they will escalate, and I promise you, they are better at escalation than we are. So what do we do, sir? That was the question, was it not? What does a proud warrior empire do when it picks a fight with the wrong species and gets its scales kicked in? Qrill'vex stood up, straightening his uniform with all 4 hands. We do the only sensible thing. We contact them and we negotiate a peace treaty before they decide to come after us. The bridge erupted in protests. Peace treaty? With primitives? After they humiliated us? It was unthinkable. Qrill'vex silenced them with a gesture. I did not survive 3 decades of military service by being stupid. Pride is a luxury we can no longer afford. Right now the humans have no idea where our home world is. They do not know our force dispositions, our defensive capabilities, or our strategic weaknesses. If we go home and pretend this never happened, they will come looking for us eventually. And when they do, they will be ready for a real war. I do not want to see what humans are capable of when they are actually trying. He had a point. A terrifying, horrifying point. Communications Officer Threkson, open a channel to Earth, priority diplomatic frequency. Sir, we do not have diplomatic relations with Earth. We are about to establish some. Open the channel. Threkson worked his console, and after a moment indicated success. Channel open, sir. Audio and visual. The main view screen flickered to life, showing the same mountain complex we had supposedly destroyed. General Patricia Okonkwo sat behind a desk, looking completely unruffled despite the fact that her facility should have been atomized. Behind her I could see military personnel working at various stations, and I noticed something that made my blood run cold. They were smiling, not relieved smiles, not nervous smiles. They were smiling like they had just won a sporting match. Like this had been entertaining for them. High Commander Qrill'vex, General Okonkwo said pleasantly. I am surprised to hear from you so soon. I expected you would need more time to regroup. General Okonkwo, Qrill'vex replied, his voice carefully neutral. I am contacting you to discuss terms. Terms of surrender? She asked. And I swear she was trying not to smirk. Terms of peace, Qrill'vex corrected, managing to keep his dignity intact. The Zotharian Empire acknowledges that our intelligence regarding Earth was faulty. We initiated hostilities based on incorrect assumptions. We wish to cease all hostile actions and establish diplomatic relations. Diplomatic relations. General Okonkwo repeated. That is an interesting way of saying you want us to not come after you. There was no point in pretending. Yes, General, that is exactly what I am saying. She leaned back in her chair, considering. Behind her, the smiling military personnel had stopped working and were watching the conversation with interest. You killed 42,000 people in your bombardment, Commander. You turned cities into glass. You fired on civilian populations, and now you want to talk peace? I cannot undo what has been done, Qrill'vex said quietly. I can only prevent further bloodshed. Both yours and mine. Interesting. You are worried about your own bloodshed now. Where was that concern 3 hours ago? General, I am not going to insult your intelligence by making excuses. We made a catastrophic error in judgment. We underestimated your species in every possible way. I am here to ensure that error does not compound into something worse. General Okonkwo studied him for a long moment. Then she looked off screen and nodded to someone. A new figure appeared in the frame, a tall man with gray hair and more medals on his uniform than I could count. High Commander, the man said, his voice carrying an authority that made even Qrill'vex straighten slightly. I am Admiral James Kowalski, Supreme Commander of the United Earth Defense Forces. Let me be very clear about something. We do not want war with your empire. We never did. We are not conquerors. We are defenders. But understand this. You came to our home, you attacked our people, you made us show you what we are capable of, and this was us being gentle. Gentle, someone on our bridge squeaked. Yes, gentle, Admiral Kowalski continued. We could have pursued your fleet. We could have tracked you through hyperspace. We could have followed you home and done to your worlds what you attempted to do to ours. We chose not to, because we are not like you. But do not mistake mercy for weakness. If you ever threaten Earth again, if any of your allies threaten Earth, if we even hear rumors that someone in your empire is planning something against us, we will not respond with a defensive fleet. We will respond with every ship, every weapon, every soldier we have. And Commander, you have only seen a fraction of what we have. The Admiral leaned forward and his eyes were colder than any void I had ever seen. Do you know what the words total war mean, Commander? I am familiar with the concept, Qrill'vex replied, his voice steady but his scales had definitely paled a shade or two. No, I do not think you are. Total war is not a military concept for us. It is a cultural memory. It is what we do when we decide something must be completely destroyed. We have done it to ourselves multiple times throughout our history, and we learned from those experiences. We learned efficiency. We learned how to mobilize entire planetary populations. We learned how to turn every factory, every resource, every citizen into part of a war machine. If you force us to use those skills against you, there will not be a Zotharian Empire anymore. There will just be empty space where it used to be. I believed him. Every word. And judging by the expressions around me, so did everyone else on the bridge. So here is what is going to happen, General Okonkwo said, taking over the conversation. You are going to return to your empire. You are going to report that Earth is under the protection of species far too dangerous to attack. You are going to establish trade relations with us, fair and equitable. You are going to pay reparations for the damage you caused, not because we cannot take them by force, but because it is the right thing to do. And in exchange, we will not hold a grudge. We will not seek revenge. We will treat you as potential friends rather than confirmed enemies. And if we refuse? Qrill'vex asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. Then we start building a fleet specifically designed to end your empire, and we will be very thorough about it. Admiral Kowalski said simply. Your choice, Commander. It was not really a choice. Qrill'vex knew it. I knew it. Everyone on the bridge knew it. The Zotharian Empire accepts your terms, Admiral General, Qrill'vex said formally. We will arrange for reparations and establish formal diplomatic channels. You have my word as a High Commander. Good, General Okonkwo said, and her expression softened slightly. For what it is worth, Commander, I am sorry about your casualties. War is terrible even when necessary. We take no pleasure in the deaths of your people. I appreciate that, General. Oh, and Commander? One more thing, she added, and now she was definitely smiling. Tell your intelligence division that next time they should actually read our history books instead of just looking at our technology level. It would save everyone a lot of trouble. The transmission ended. The Bridge of the Infinite Victory was absolutely silent for approximately 10 seconds. Then Lieutenant Qrill'vex spoke, his voice small and confused. Did we just get lectured by the species we tried to invade? Yes, Lieutenant, Qrill'vex replied tiredly. Yes, we did, and we deserved every word of it. I pulled up my reports already dreading the paperwork this disaster was going to generate. Sir, I should begin compiling our after-action analysis. Command will want a full accounting. Oh, I am quite certain they will, Qrill'vex said dryly. Make sure you include everything, Analyst Vrek'tal. Every mistake, every oversight, every catastrophic failure of intelligence and judgment, and make sure you emphasize one point above all others. What point is that, sir? that humanity should never under any circumstances be considered primitive. They are the most dangerous species we have ever encountered, and the only reason we are alive to report this is because they chose to let us live. I began typing my report, and as I did I could not help but think about something General Okonkwo had said. They were defenders, not conquerors. They had the capability to pursue us, to destroy us, and they chose not to. What kind of species gains that much power and chooses restraint? The same kind that tests planet-destroying weapons on their own world, apparently. The same kind that turns playing into training and entertainment into preparation. The same kind that spends millennia fighting each other and somehow comes out of it more unified rather than destroyed. Humans, I realized, were not just dangerous because they were good at fighting. They were dangerous because they knew when not to fight. They understood proportional response. They could win a battle and still choose peace. That made them more terrifying than any warrior race I had ever studied. 3 weeks later, the Infinite Victory returned to the Zotharian homeworld. The survivor fleet was met not with celebration but with shock and horror. 63 ships had left, 41 returned, many heavily damaged. The High Council convened immediately. Qrill'vex stood before them, his uniform still showing scorch marks from the battle, and delivered his report with the kind of honesty that probably ended careers. "Honored council members," he began, "I am here to report the complete and total failure of the Earth invasion. Not only did we fail to conquer the planet, we were decisively defeated by a species we had classified as primitive. I take full responsibility for this disaster." The council erupted into questions and accusations. How could this happen? Why were we not prepared? Who approved this disaster? Qrill'vex waited for them to quiet down, then continued. "I have submitted a full tactical analysis, compiled by Analyst Vrek'tal of my staff. I recommend every member of this council read it carefully. The short version is this. Humanity is not primitive. They are highly advanced in all the ways that matter for warfare. They have been fighting each other for thousands of years, refining combat into an art form. They have technology we did not anticipate, tactics we could not counter, and most importantly, they have experience we cannot match. Surely we could mobilize the full Imperial fleet," one council member suggested. "Overwhelm them with numbers." "No," Qrill'vex said flatly. "Absolutely not. That would be suicide. The humans we fought were holding back. They could have pursued us, could have destroyed our entire fleet, and chose not to. They made it very clear that if we escalate, they will respond with total war, and council members, they know what that means in ways we do not. I recommend we accept their terms for peace and consider ourselves fortunate to escape with our lives." There was more arguing, more debate, but eventually wisdom prevailed. The council agreed to establish diplomatic relations with Earth, pay the reparations, and most importantly, add humanity to the very short list of species that should never be threatened under any circumstances. I was promoted, somehow. Apparently delivering bad news accurately is a valued skill in the Empire. I am now Senior Analyst Vrek'tal, and my primary job is educating our military commanders about species that are more dangerous than they appear. I give a lot of lectures about humanity. The key thing to understand, I told a room full of junior officers last week, is that humans are not strong because they are peaceful. They are strong despite choosing peace. They could conquer half the galaxy if they wanted to. They have the technology, the tactics, and the sheer bloody-minded determination to do it. They choose not to because they have learned, through millennia of fighting themselves, that conquest is ultimately pointless. But never ever mistake that choice for inability. One young officer raised a claw. "But Senior Analyst, surely we could defeat them if we really needed to. We have more ships, more resources." I pulled up the footage of a human fighter doing a barrel roll around a plasma beam, then shooting a missile down a cannon barrel. "Officer Cadet, that pilot had been flying for less than 2 years. They learned to do that in 2 years. Imagine what a 10-year veteran could do. Now imagine 1,000 of them, working together using tactics refined over millennia of constant warfare. Still think we could win?" The cadet was silent. "The humans have a saying," I continued, "do not mistake kindness for weakness. That is exactly what we did, and it nearly cost us everything. Learn from our mistake. The most dangerous opponent is not the one who wants to fight. It is the one who knows how to fight but chooses peace instead, because when you force them to fight, they will show you exactly why peace was the better option." The lecture ended, the cadets filed out, and I was left alone with my thoughts and my memories of the day the Zotharian Empire learned humility. You know what the strangest part is? After all the treaties were signed, after all the reparations were paid, after diplomatic relations were properly established, the humans invited us to participate in something they called the Galactic Cultural Exchange Program. We sent diplomats, scientists, artists. They were welcomed warmly. Humans showed them their cities, their rebuilt cities, pointed out the monuments they had erected to those who died in our attack, and then they invited our people to dinner. No anger, no resentment, just curiosity about our culture and genuine interest in building friendship. Ambassador Vrek'tal, my old colleague from the Infinite Victory, sent me a message from Earth last month. He was attending something called a barbecue, which apparently involves cooking food over open flames and standing around talking while you eat. Vrek'tal. His message read, I just spent 3 hours drinking beer and discussing military history with a human general who shot down 6 of our fighters. He bought me drinks and asked if I wanted to go fishing tomorrow. These beings are absolutely insane, and I think I am starting to like them. I think I am too. They are terrifying. Yes, they are capable of unimaginable violence. Absolutely. But they are also capable of forgiveness, of moving forward, of choosing friendship over grudges. That might be the most dangerous thing about them, actually. They do not just defeat you. They make you want to be better. They set an example that makes your own petty conflicts seem small and pointless. 3 months after our disastrous invasion, humanity sent an ambassador to the Zotharian homeworld. Ambassador Jennifer Wu arrived with a small security detail and a proposal for a mutual defense pact. We are not interested in conquest, she told the High Council during her first official address. But we are interested in stability. The galaxy is a big place, and there are threats out there worse than either of our species. We would rather face them as friends than as enemies. The Council, still nursing their wounded pride, was skeptical. Why would humanity want to ally with us after what we did? Ambassador Wu smiled. Because you learned. You made a mistake, a terrible one. But you acknowledged it. You accepted responsibility. You made amends. That shows character, and character is what we look for in allies. The Mutual Defense Pact was signed 2 months later, the Zotharian Empire and Earth allies. Who would have thought? I am writing this account 5 years after the invasion, and I am happy to report that relations between our species are actually quite good. We trade technology, share information, and yes, we even engage in joint military exercises. The first time I watched Zotharian pilots training alongside human pilots, I nearly wept. Our people, learning from the species that defeated us so thoroughly, becoming better warriors in the process. The humans teach us their tactics, their strategies, their approach to warfare. In exchange, we teach them patience, strategic thinking, and the value of careful planning. It is a good partnership, and you know what? In all the joint exercises we have conducted across all scenarios, combined human and Zotharian forces have never lost a single engagement. We are terrifying together. So that is my story. The story of how the Zotharian Empire invaded Earth, got thoroughly beaten in under 3 hours, and somehow ended up becoming friends with the most dangerous species in the galaxy. The moral of this story: do your research before invading anyone. Read their history. Understand their culture. And if you are ever thinking about attacking a species that has spent millennia fighting itself, maybe just send a fruit basket and a friendship treaty instead. It will save you a lot of trouble, trust me. Oh, and one more thing. Last week, humanity revealed they had been working on new ship designs. Faster, more maneuverable, with weapons systems that make our plasma cannons look like children's toys. They showed us the prototypes and asked if we wanted to help develop them. Who are these for? I asked the human engineer, showing me around. He grinned. Well, Analyst Vrek'tal. If anyone ever decides to threaten Earth or her allies, we want to make sure we are ready. You know how it is. Hope for the best. Prepare for the worst. I looked at the sleek, deadly ships in the construction bay and felt a chill run down my spine. These were not defensive ships. These were predator ships, designed by a species that had spent countless generations learning to hunt, and they were calling us allies. I am very, very glad we chose peace.